Are you ready to learn about mitochondrial DNA and how it helps Michael Burnham use the Red Angel suit in Star Trek Discovery? Tune in right now. Hello, my name is Mohammed Noor. I'm a biology professor at Duke University, and I'm an occasional science consultant for the Star Trek universe. I'm very excited to talk with you today about mitochondrial DNA, what it is, and how it was applied in a couple of episodes of Star Trek Discovery with respect to the Red Angel suit. So let's dive right in.
Earlier in Season 2 of Discovery, we learned that the mysterious Red Angel spacesuit is somehow tuned to only work with Michael Burnham. But then, when they finally catch it, we find it's actually being operated by her mom, Dr. Burnham. Now, in the episode Perpetual Infinity, we learn that the reason it works for both Michael Burnham and Dr. Burnham is that they share the same mitochondrial DNA. That's what I want to talk about today. What is mitochondrial DNA, and how did this work? So most human genes live on structures called chromosomes that are found in the nucleus of pretty much every cell in your body. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes in each cell. And I say pairs because you get one copy of each chromosome from your mom and one copy from your dad. And that's why you have two copies of all those genes. And there are a lot of genes on those chromosomes, maybe 20 to 25,000, depending on exactly how one defines the word genes. Now again, these genes are in the nucleus of your cells. However, you actually have a handful of other genes somewhere else, in the mitochondria of your cells. You may remember from school that the mitochondria are the powerhouses of cells, in that they produce energy from sugars for you. What you may not know, though, is that mitochondria are descendants of ancient single-celled organisms that got engulfed and provided energy for the bigger cells that swallowed them. This happened over 1 billion years ago, and their descendants live on today as these powerhouses in nearly all animal and plant cells. This origin story is called the endosymbiotic theory, or sometimes symbiogenesis. Now, mitochondria today have their own sets of circularized DNA containing only 37 genes in humans. And they have multiple copies of these 37 genes per mitochondria too. This one here is showing 3 copies. Now, 37 genes is obviously way less than the 20,000 that are found in the nucleus, but they are important. Some bad human diseases come from mutations in these mitochondrial genes. Now, interestingly, unlike what happens with all the chromosomes, where you get one copy from your mom and one copy from dad, you inherit basically all your mitochondrial DNA from your mom's egg. So everyone has exactly the same mitochondrial DNA letters as their mom, shy of any mutations that crop up. So what would a mom do who has a mitochondrial gene mutation causing disease? Because their kids would for sure get it. Well, one possible option for those moms is to not pass it on through what's called a 3-parent baby technique in the media. You may have heard this from the news. There are a few different ways that this can be done, but one has to do with getting an egg donor, which provides healthy mitochondria, removing its nucleus, and then putting the nucleus from the mom's egg into it. The eventual kid after fertilization has one copy of all nuclear genes from mom, one copy of all nuclear genes from dad, and the 37 mitochondrial genes from this egg donor. Now, despite this inflammatory name of 3-parent babies from the media, that third parent is again putting in less than 1% of all genes that this offspring gets. Now, one thing I want to stress, men do have mitochondrial DNA, but it just doesn't get passed on to their children because it's only passed on through the eggs from moms. Now, back to Star Trek Discovery. Again, this Red Angel spacesuit worked for both Michael Burnham and her mom, Dr. Burnham, because they have the same mitochondrial DNA. The basis of the science here is good. Michael Burnham and Dr. Burnham would have basically identical mitochondrial DNA. Now, this was supposedly tested by the suit through some sort of, quote, BIONEURAL signature. It's really not clear what that means, but if we assume something about a product of their mitochondrial DNA is being sampled and tested by the suit, I guess that's fair. Maybe the suit was even looking at the mitochondrial DNA directly somehow. Let me spell out a possibility. If you wanted to study someone's DNA, at least for some purposes, there is a reason you might want to focus on their mitochondrial DNA in particular. So you may remember I said before that most of your cells have one copy of every gene from mom and one copy from dad. The mitochondria have just those 37 genes from mom, but they have many copies of those genes in each mitochondrion. And unlike the cell in the picture here, some cells in your body have hundreds or maybe even thousands of mitochondria. So again, many hundreds or thousands of copies of those genes from mom in literally every single cell. So if you wanted fast access to lots of genetic material from someone, it might make sense to look at mitochondrial DNA rather than nuclear DNA. Now, given the red angel suit probably needs fast access to check who the user is, and given there are lots of mitochondria at nerve synapses in particular, synapses are the connection points of nerve cells, maybe the BIONEURAL signature is actually a test of mitochondrial DNA, and it's somehow sampling it directly from those nerve endings. Now, there's a similar thing that comes up in an earlier episode in Season 2, when Ensign Tilly disappears into the mycelial network. Paul Stamets said he scanned for her mitochondrial DNA. Again, that makes sense since you're more likely to detect mitochondrial DNA from smaller trace cell samples than nuclear DNA. Now, there is a problem or a catch that I've sidestepped here. Since there are only 37 genes in mitochondrial DNA is not as diagnostic as nuclear DNA. So you're more likely to detect mitochondrial DNA because there's so many copies, but you're less likely to be able to say with total confidence that, quote, this DNA sample came from one specific person. It's like saying someone is 6'1", has brown hair and blue eyes. That helps narrow it down, but there may be multiple people who would fit that description. Still, it's exciting that Star Trek Discovery introduced the idea of mitochondrial DNA, and honestly, I feel like it did pretty well overall.
Had you heard of mitochondrial DNA before? Did you understand how it was used in this episode? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for tuning into BioTrekkie Explains. See you next time.